Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we have a very special guest on, Victor Padee. And Victor, you are the Chief Revenue Officer at Aevi. And you've been in the financial industry, services industry, your entire career. You've risen to a point where you started out as a young man out of college, coming from Poland to the UK with 500 pounds in your pocket, started working in factories, loading trucks, and now you lead an international revenue team, sales, marketing, partnerships, roadmap on the product, the entire go-to-market strategy internationally. You've got a lot on your shoulders. And what we're going to talk about is some of the lessons that you've learned along the way. And one of them is the case against playing it safe. Why playing it safe is actually not the path to revenue leadership, not the path to success. And that actually sometimes we need to break what's already working in order to recreate success in the long run. There's a lot to unpack here. What I'd love to do is to say, if you wouldn't mind expanding on your background just a little bit before we get started.
Sure, Steve, thanks for a great introduction. When you say it like that, it sounds like an amazing journey. Maybe from the outside it is. When you actually go through the journey, it maybe doesn't sound as impressive, but yes, I came over from Poland between my first and second year of uni with 500 pounds in my pocket, believing I could make it work. Maybe there is this kind of attitude and courage to say, actually, I'm going to break the mold and start again. Maybe this was the seed that influenced my actions and my career trajectory to the point where I'm at. Very fortunate to be at Aevi. I've got amazing teams of sales, marketing, partnerships, pre-sales. I work very closely with our CTO on our product roadmap strategy, with our executive team on our go-to-market strategy to make sure that we survive, we thrive. And one of the things that we talked about was having the courage to break the status quo. For me, I guess part of it is driven by the very simple fact that in the last 2-3 years, I've seen more change than I have seen probably in 20 years leading up to that point.
But we can't rely on what we used to do. We'll still continue to create the success. And you've not only broken the mold, we're going to talk about that. You've asked for patience from the rest of your executive team and the board to seed a strategy that is working quite well now. We're going to get in and unpack all of that. But what I'd love to do is, being at the top can be a lonely place. And there's a thing called the executive isolation reality, right?
Yeah.
And how isolating the C-suite role can be and how that feels and how that impacts then your performance and what you do.
Sure. I think there's a certain degree of expectations when people look up to you and you're at the proverbial top at the C-suite, at the top of the structure, top of the company. There's this expectation that you will have all the answers, maybe never make a mistake. And it is predominantly still male-dominated place. And I don't think people talk about enough about how lonely it could be. The reason behind it, I feel, is that many C-suite executives find it difficult to speak to other C-suite executives because most of the people that they would know will be within the same industry, or there might be rival companies, and then you don't want to show the weakness, right? But also speaking to anyone that is within your company, some people will see this as a sign of weakness or maybe lack of confidence. Therefore, you find yourself in a place where you've got a lot of thoughts that you can't really soundboard with other people. This is why I wanted to get involved with having a podcast with you today, is if there is one person that will benefit from it, that will be great. Another element in this is that my spouse and my wife, she's super smart, amazing, but she doesn't understand the industry. She still jokes that she still doesn't know what I do. Even though I tried to explain it to her many times, me going to her with some individual thoughts, observations, she will listen, but what kind of good advice or tactical advice can she provide me with? That's obviously might be a little bit difficult. I think there's an element to that. I think we're getting better. We're getting better in sharing stories, speaking to each other. People are finding more mentors and mentees. I think things are improving. The stigma around mental health, around loneliness and authenticity is now diminishing. I think it's still a long way to go.
Amazing, because I talk to C-suite executives every day on this podcast, and there is still a really tremendous amount of feelings of isolation, but feelings like I don't belong, imposter syndrome. Do I really get it? Am I as smart as my contemporaries? And I think having a community where you can bring together and you can hear and you can share, it normalizes challenges. We realize nobody has all the answers. We're not the only ones. And so it's
Absolutely.
important, right? It's important to not feel in isolation, but also, like you said, if from every conversation, if we can learn one thing that we can take away, even one thing, we're all the better for it, because we have to constantly educate ourselves. We're going to get into that because you're a huge believer in education. But I wanted to ask a little bit is about that you feel that there's a gap, that when we don't talk to each other, there's not a sounding board, there's a lack of feedback from the marketplace, what's being tested, what's being tried. So we have to be our own innovation suite, all wrapped into one, right?
Sure.
How do we get around that? And what kind of an impact does that have on our business?
We all think that we go through unique problems, right? Which is quite interesting. When you actually speak to other people, we all go through similar stuff, not the same, but similar stuff. Is there enough forums and enough spaces and or communities where you could really discuss it? I don't think there is. So you then go through repeating the same mistakes and going through your own iteration of learning. It's important to still have the courage to do it, to break it and reinvent yourself because of the pace of change, because of how things are. This is why we've still got the role for consultants, for external non-execs coming in and maybe having a more formal arrangement. Can we do a little bit more in kind of non-formal arrangements and communication and having a CRO forum to say, listen, guys, I am trying this. Does it really work? I've seen this new AI tool and it promises great results, but does it really say those are what it says on the tin, right? I don't think we do it enough. One thing I've recently heard, it's obviously now people are using AI more. But in all of this, what maybe we need to all think about is the fact that AI tool that whichever you're using will learn your habits, will learn how you operate. So then you could create kind of one-on-one echo chamber then and say, oh, he's very empathetic. He understands me a lot. The reason behind it is because it is as close to a mirror of you as it could be. It's the only tool that people should be using. And having different views, different opinions, and maybe sometimes from outside of the industry, outside of the region, it's something that we should really encourage.
You've alluded to this twice now, and so I want to ask you a little bit more about it. At the beginning, you talked about that in the past few years, there's probably been more change than in the rest of your entire career, right?
Sure.
And that trajectory is not changing. So everything from we know our ICP is constantly evolving, constantly changing. The market is constantly evolving, constantly changing. Technology and its role, expectations of value that we provide. You could go on and on.
Yeah.
In that world of change, you talked about, and you've just been talking about how we need to stay up to date. We need to educate ourselves. We need to be talking to others in the marketplace, or we're falling behind quickly. The other aspect of this that you talked about is the need to take your own people inside of the company along this journey of change. If it's constantly changing, we can feel like we keep getting the rug pulled out from under us. What was yesterday's target is now not the same target today. How do you take people along that change journey and align vision along the way so that the team is aligned together and moving forward?
Sure. There's so much to unpack here, Steve. A lot of questions, but I absolutely love it. So first of all, I think that I looked at some statistics from Salesforce. These days, the average tenure for a CRO is 1.8 years, which is around 21 to 22 months. The revenue leaders beneath that is 13 to 18 months. The sales rep turnover, it's on average year and a half again, right? The average ramp-up time is 3.2 months. If you deduct the ramp-up time from the tenure of 18 months, you basically are given a window of 13 months, around a year. What can you achieve in a year? We are becoming more and more impatient. We expect everything to be today. We expect things to be delivered today, the same day or the next day. If it's not delivered within that timescale, we are getting frustrated. Because of the rise of AI, where in the past, when you ask somebody to build a website, they said, oh, it will take us 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Now you could prompt it and within 15 seconds, you have a website. It inevitably has got an effect on how we operate, how we think, and the expectations that are being set from the outside, but also from inside out. So in all of this, I think it's very important to clearly articulate the long-term vision and have a long-term strategy that, yes, it gets tweaked, but ultimately remains the same until you've got enough time for it to be embedded, for people not to have a whiplash over the constant change. If you've got a CROs coming in every 1.8 years, they come in by the time getting themselves embedded and then they start thinking about something else. How much of the actually doing you could do?
Can I ask you for another follow-on question on this? The vision I got is we can be bobbing up and down in the sea and the waves and the wind are taking us in a certain direction. But if we have that long-term focus, at least we know where the horizon is. We know where we're trying to head. That's an internal grounding mechanism. Is there an equally powerful external grounding mechanism, which is the voice of the customer? The reason why I bring it up, because in our previous conversations, we talked a lot about this, but there was like this amazing study by McKinsey that said less than 15% of companies actually execute well on a voice of the customer program. Yet we all know it's the highest voice of authority in our business. None of us would ever say we're not customer first. We're not customer focused. Every single one of us would say we are. It's to the degree that we are. And is that customer voice the grounding rod as well, in terms of where we're going, what we're doing, who we're serving? Is that important as well?
Ultimately, the short answer is yes, it is very important. A few elements in all of this is, first of all, what we think is not right, what our customers think is right. Because ultimately, we don't get paid on nice presentations, nice meetings. We all get paid on revenue. Unless we are fixing the problem or helping somebody to accomplish, avoid, or repair, then we will not get to a revenue point. That's a fact. Are we listening to customers enough? I would like to say that we do, but then I think we'll be naive, because then I don't think we're spending enough time with our customers. I don't think we are keeping our ears to the ground. I think there's also an element in all of this that there's a dilution of message. That if you've got a, let's say, customer service representative or salesperson speaking to a customer, if the feedback is negative, by the time it reaches their manager, it's being softened. Then it's being softened again. By the time it reaches the C-suite, then it's actually completely drastically different to what it initially was. There's a big role on people at every single level of the company to be speaking to customers. People at the C-suite, management level, every single part, speaking to customers, interacting with customers. Our CEO is absolutely amazing when it comes to that. He's the best salesperson in the room, and he loves being in front of the customers. He brings it into board discussions, and as a result, he gets it. That's element in all of this. Another element that I'm trying to spend a lot of time on is crystallizing our ideal customer profile and fully understanding who our top customer, potential customers, potential targets are. We sit within the enterprise space, enterprise retail, enterprise fuel. Every single of the customers that we have, while on paper, they sound like the same customer, when you actually dig into what they're trying to achieve, they are completely different businesses. So there is a risk in all of that. If you're not laser focused on your ICP, that you will get distracted. And then you have to really prioritize which customers we're going after, which problems we're going to solve for them, So then we could serve this niche customers as well as we can, rather than spreading ourselves too thin. Asking 100 people for what the problem is, you'll get probably 100 responses. You need to then try to prioritize and focus company, again, on every single level to say, we need to do this because that's going to benefit us long term. Doing this short-term revenue, while it looks great on P&L, might have a detrimental effect on us long term. It might move our strategy by 2-3 degrees, and as a result then could hurt us long term. 75% of existing FTSE 100 companies will not exist in 2 years' time. It's a scary stat. When I looked at this, I was blown away. It's not easy. Let's face it, nobody's going to get it right, and it's a constant process of readjusting, having the North Star, and but readjusting and trying to say, okay, but also having a courage to say, we need to break it now to start again. If we continue like that, we might be okay for 2-3 years, but then at year 3, we'll have a cliff drop performance and then we'll disappear. And we had plenty of examples like that, looking at Blockbuster, Kodak. They were amazing companies. And if you ask anyone these days to see Kodak car, they wouldn't know, let alone Blockbuster.
They were like icons in the industry before. You just said something incredible. You just said we have to be prepared to break it in order to succeed. What did you mean by that? What do you mean by the idea of needing to break something that looks successful, and why?
Sure. I'll give you the real life example of me. Every single day, every single week, every single month, I look at every single function that I've got and I visualize it as it dials on my dashboards. I've got sales, marketing, partnership, pre-sales, product. And I look at this and say, which of the dials do I need to move? Whether I move them at the same time, whether I move one of them more. I look at this and ask myself a question. What we are doing, is it good? And how do I know it's good? And how can I make it better? Because just because something is working extremely well right now doesn't mean that will work very well in the future. I'm always looking for the banana skins and thinking, okay, can I improve this? Yes, for example, our number of leads are going in the right direction. Will this strategy be successful only in this quarter? Or can I replicate it in quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4? If it doesn't stand the scrutiny every single time I approach this problem, then I improve it. I have to, again, give credit to my C-suite, to COO, CFO. I've got a lot of freedom with regards to bringing new ideas and A/B testing. For example, having different campaigns in place where we run a certain campaign, look at the results, and then we run a parallel campaign at the same time. Looking at our marketing messaging, having one that is a little bit more traditional versus one is a little bit more out there, left field, and then looking at the results. And then constantly thinking, okay, where do we need to tweak this? Same as speaking with the customers. We had a big campaign, we had a lot of great meetings, but none of those great meetings really resulted in tangible opportunities, which for me was, listen, it's great. We've got an amazing meeting. We meet up and shake hands and everyone is patting themselves on the back. But I was like, that's not going to guarantee success for us. We need to tweak our ICP to the point where there is more of a real pain, and we tweaked it, and all of a sudden we had less meetings, but the number of opportunities increased drastically. It's the courage of saying, doing the same thing and expecting different results is a sign of madness. I constantly question myself and I constantly think, can I do things better? Can I do things differently? Can I test some stuff that I see? And I try to educate myself on different tools, different approaches to say, does it work for me? Will it work in our industry? Will it work for us? Will it work for my team?
I want to dig a little bit deeper because we had a phenomenal conversation the last time we got together. Our title here is The Case Against Playing It Safe in Revenue Leadership. And you had to take a leap of faith to do something that would take time to reap the benefits. You're just now starting to see a lot of the benefits of a program that you put into place, that you had to sell throughout the company, sell throughout the C-suite, sell at the board level. And it was about taking content and promoting it in an education form. If you could Tell us the risk you took, the leap of faith that you took here, and what you're doing and why you're seeing success.
Sure. The specific example was actually bringing on board a demand generation manager. In sales and marketing, we talk a lot about demand capture, but the way we purchase things has changed. The buying cycles are different to what they used to be. I look at the way I purchase things. When I'm looking for holidays or a car, a mobile phone, I tend to do a lot of research, form my own opinion, and then either purchase online or reach out to 2, 3 people. Already I've got a pre-formed opinion. For some reason, business to business sales, people think that is different. It's not. We operate in-person payments. I can guarantee that there will be a company that says our in-person payments doesn't work and asking somebody to find the best in-person payment solution. What they will most likely do, the first thing that when they sit at the desk, they either go online and say, what is the best in-person payments? Or they go into ChatGPT and say, this is our situation, X amount of locations, regions, who would be the best to serve me? What this prompted in my head, this shift in the buying habits, is the idea of we need to create more demand. Whenever people are searching for that solution, we are at the forefront of their mind. We are creating a lot of content, we're creating a lot of communities, we speak with industry experts. So then we produce a lot of content that is very useful to our potential audience. It's useful for us to help us with our strategy, but it also helps with putting Aevi on a map. I've named the kind of a strategy called All Eyes on Aevi. I want as many people talking about Aevi and thinking about Aevi whenever they are looking for in-person payment solution. It is not your traditional approach. What I proposed to our CEO and CFO and said, I would like to bring somebody in that I know is very good with creating demand, creating the community, bringing the right people that we could learn from, and then we could influence and create a lot of thought leadership pieces, real thought leadership pieces. I'm not talking about a white paper that is sales leaflet dressed in a white paper. Thought leadership pieces that are provoking, they are really bringing a lot of great discussion and bringing a spotlight to certain problems. We've had an agreement, we brought that person on board, and the first 3 months, we don't see any results. Normally at that point, people will be there and start panicking, saying, what is happening? I said, listen, guys, just bear with me. This is not a short-term process. We need to wait for the results, and we need to then, what kind of ripple effect it will have long-term. And 4 months down the line, we had the uptick of activity. 5 months down the line, we had a big uptick. And then 6 months onwards, all of a sudden, we, in the last month, 3 international brands coming to us directly, asking what we could do for them. And the ones that we wouldn't be able to approach ourselves. The brands is one of the top 10 volume-wise worldwide. And they approached us because on the back of the demand generation and thought leadership that we are doing, and the amount of doors and rooms that we've opened and that we sat in as a result has really been invaluable. And I don't think we could have done it by having advertising campaigns alone or PR or producing amazing white papers. I'm not saying we should stop doing it because it's still part of the overall tools and dials that we have got. But introducing that, I put my neck on the block and said, listen, I really believe in it and I think we should be doing it. Now we see the results. Now it's much easier for me to say, actually, yes, we need to continue doing it. But having this period and having this buy-in that we should be focusing on it, it was crucial to succeed. If we stopped at month 3, we wouldn't have the results that we've got now. This idea of how long have we got to prove certain things to make them really work.
See, what I love is you have taken where the industry is going, and there's plenty of studies that all of us can see from Bain, Google, Sixth Sense that talk about day one in the buyer's journey when they decide, hey, we're looking for an international payments solution, right? Day one, they decide 4 out of 5 of the companies they're going to consider. And over 90% of the time, one of them is who they buy from. The day they decide, if you're not top of mind, you're out of the game. What you did is you said, we're going to get in the game before they decide. right?
Absolutely.
We all look for like buying intent signals and form fills and things like that is intent after the buying decision has been made. We're chasing our tail at that point. What you've done is you said, because thought leadership can be, lots of people look at thought leadership and they go, that's the thing the CMOs talk about and building the brand and awareness, and it's a long-term thing. And yeah, sure, it's good. What you're saying is, no, it's critical. The buyer's journey has changed. We all know that. They're waiting till they're almost done to even want to talk to us. And the ones they want to talk to are the ones they decided on day one. I think there is a massive takeaway here for any B2B C-suite executive with an ABM go-to-market motion is if you are not doing what you're doing and focusing very clearly on developing awareness, who we are, and developing trust by giving value thought leadership. Back to what you said about the voice of the customer, you can't create great thought leadership that evokes conversation and answers the right questions if you don't know who your customer is. And if you haven't really ruthlessly crystallized your ICP, all the things that you have been saying throughout this whole podcast build as a learning system, I think, for other C-suite executives. That was why I was so excited when you and I first had this conversation. Is there anything that I'm missing out of that as we want to close out?
There's one thing that you mentioned this, and it's a great summary. Thank you. There's one word that for me, and I keep on drilling it to everyone, is the idea of trust. Unless you've got a Rolodeck, and those things are now thing of the past because we've got more options, there's more relationship and business are more international. How can we build trust so when people talk to you, they realize that you've been consistent with your messaging, that you're not just saying something for the sake of saying it, that you believe in the problem you're solving, the ICP, the sector that you're in, the region that you're in? How do you build trust? These days, with the use of AI, you could build the most beautiful marketing campaign. It will have the right personalization, have the right words into it. You could build a lot of amazing videos that are AI made, but then does it really build the trust? I think people are now more and more will be looking for the authentic opportunities, authentic communities, authentic companies that are relentlessly trying to build trust and bringing people to a table, bringing thought leadership to a table that might not directly benefit them, creating a partner ecosystem that helps with the trust, saying sometimes that we are not the right partner for you, and admitting to it, saying, listen, there are other people that could serve you better. We are not right for you because of the state of your growth of our product, etc. Building this long-term trust. This is this idea of a bank account that I always think about. When I was individual contributor, my biggest deal, it took me 10 years to win. It was 3 rounds of RFPs and 2 rounds were unsuccessful. But throughout 10 years, I've changed companies 3 times at that time. But what I did, I was consistently spoke to their buying team. I consistently spoke to the C-suite and the payments team. When its 3rd round, the RFP came up for renewal, they messaged me and said, listen, Victor, you were the only person that kept in touch with us over the last decade. We want to sit down with you and you help us shape the RFP. But we'll still go to the RFP. What else are we missing? The way I imagine it, I was the first search on Google. They looked for it, they formed their opinion, and as a result, we won the RFP. It was one of the biggest deals in the history of the company. I remember it actually did my annual target in a week of trading. Again, it goes to the idea of trust. And when we ask people to part with their money, and these days we've got on average, 6 to 10 people involved in the decision-making process, I think there is a big bias towards staying with an incumbent because this is seen as the lowest risk. When we ask people to part with money in enterprise deals, that's 6-figure, 7-figure deals, unless we've got this trust built throughout the company, throughout the buying center, the idea or chance of winning is extremely small.
I got to tell you, I wish we had another hour. We might need to have you back on the podcast. This has been such an amazing conversation. I just want to say thank you because the goal here is to bring C-suite executives together, that we can all share our learnings, our successes, our triumph, our tribulations, everything, right? If we do that, then it's all part of a rising tide that lifts all boats. And oh my goodness, Victor, you were such an important part of that rising tide today. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on to the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me. And like we said before, if that helps one person out there, somebody improves by listening to my ramblings and our conversations, then my mission is done. I'll feel very accomplished. Thank you for having me, Steve.